Number 1. Interesting facts about Cambodia. In many countries, when young men reach adulthood, they are called to serve in the military. However, in Cambodia, in addition to military service, they are also required to enter a monastery to practice Buddhism for a period of 3 to 6 years. This is not only a religious obligation, but is also seen as a phase of character development. Living in a monastery allows them to engage with Buddhist teachings early on, learning discipline, humility, and respect for the community. Perhaps it is this early immersion in such values that contributes to the generally gentle, honest, and straightforward nature of Cambodians. In many rural areas, harvested crops can be left out in the fields to dry without much worry about theft, which is quite rare in many other places. Another interesting fact about Cambodia reveals a completely contrasting side. While daily life is relatively peaceful, the training process for security forces here is extremely rigorous. To become a police officer, trainees must undergo intense endurance training. During some training sessions, they are required to stand under the scorching sun for long periods, while officers continuously strike their bodies to test their pain tolerance and reflexes. For Cambodia, this is a way to filter those who are capable of handling real-life pressures. Additionally, Cambodia has a family culture that is quite different from many Southeast Asian countries. Children born here typically take their mother's surname instead of their father's. This practice stems from the historical influence of matriarchy. Consequently, in marriages, many families opt for the practice of bride-taking, where the man moves in with his wife's family, rather than the traditional bride-fetching ceremonies seen in many other places. Few people know that Cambodia also has some very unique approaches to education. In the past, when families could not afford tuition fees, they often brought food to school as a substitute. Nowadays, in some areas, tuition can be paid with recyclable waste, such as plastic bottles or metal cans. This method not only helps underprivileged children access education, but also contributes to waste reduction. Not only schools, but Cambodia also has cafes that allow customers to bring in trash in exchange for drinks, turning waste into a form of practical exchange value. Finally, one fact that leaves a lasting impression on many tourists about Cambodia is its street food. For many, dishes made from insects can be off-putting due to their appearance. However, in Cambodia, fried crickets, dried frogs, and stir-fried larvae are very popular and sold throughout the streets, becoming a familiar part of daily life for the locals. Number 2. Cultural shocks. When arriving in Cambodia. When visiting Cambodia, one of the things that surprises many tourists is that the locals use two types of currency: the local currency called riel and the US dollar. This can sometimes confuse foreign visitors, as some places only accept dollars while others only take riel. There are times when you pay in dollars, but the change is given in riel, and checking whether you receive the correct amount can be a small challenge in the market. However, that's not the strangest thing. An interesting fact is that Cambodians are quite reluctant to accept a $2 bill. If you present this note, they might smile, shake their heads, and ask to exchange it for a different denomination. This may sound odd, but the reason is quite understandable. The $2 bill is very rare, even in the US. The US government prints very few of these notes, primarily for commemorative or collectible purposes, so they are hardly seen in everyday circulation. When US dollars circulate in Cambodia through tourism and remittances, the $1, $5, and $10 bills are much more common, while the $2 bill has almost disappeared. Due to its rarity, many Cambodians suspect it might be counterfeit or are unsure of its value, so they prefer to play it safe and not accept it. Additionally, some people believe that the number 2 symbolizes division or bad luck in business, so they tend to avoid it even more. Therefore, in larger hotels or tourist areas, staff may still accept the bill, but will often quickly pass it on to another tourist. In markets, small shops, or rural areas, the $2 bill is almost completely rejected. Another surprising aspect is how Cambodians navigate addresses. In many cities, houses are not numbered sequentially as in Western countries. Instead of saying number 45 on Street 3, locals will describe locations as near the temple with the golden roof, opposite the blue cafe, or behind the bank at the main intersection. This stems from the fact that most residential areas have developed spontaneously over the years without a unified planning system. Furthermore, in Khmer cultural life, the temple is the spiritual center of the community, so when giving directions, they often use the temple as a primary landmark. Therefore, don't rely too much on Google Maps when traveling here. It's best to take a tuk-tuk or ask drivers for directions, as they frequently interact with tourists and can guide you accurately and understandably. As you stroll along the streets of Phnom Penh or Siem Reap, you will easily notice that in cafes, restaurants, and even ordinary homes, there are often mirrors and Buddha statues adorned with colorful LED lights. To Westerners, this may seem like an unusual decoration, but for Cambodians, it holds special spiritual significance. They believe that the light reflected from the mirrors and lights will ward off negative energy while inviting good fortune and peace into their homes. The illuminated Buddha statues are seen as symbols of protection, ensuring that families remain harmonious. Number 3. Countries with unique marriage customs. In Cambodia, there is a tribe where parents build a separate house for their daughters to choose their partners. This unusual custom belongs to the Krayung people, who live in the northeastern mountainous region of the country. When a girl reaches puberty, usually around the ages of 15 to 18, her parents will construct a small hut right next to the main house. They call it the love house. From the moment she moves in, the girl has the right to invite any boy she feels attracted to visit her in the evenings. They chat, get to know each other, and if they feel compatible, their relationship may progress further. If she doesn't feel a connection, she can completely end it and meet someone else, without any pressure or judgment from her family or community. This choosing a partner process can last for weeks, months, or even years until she finds someone she truly bonds with. At that point, both will inform their families and move towards marriage. What's special is that all decision-making power lies with the girl, from who to invite into the love house to whether or not to marry. Another surprising custom is that in some rural areas of Cambodia, daughters are expected to know how to smoke before getting married. Smoking, especially traditional strong-smelling rolled cigarettes, is seen as a symbol of maturity, strength, and the ability to endure hardships. Many girls start learning to smoke as young as 6 or 7 years old, as part of their journey to become women. Families believe that if a daughter has never experienced the bitterness and harshness of a cigarette, she is not yet ready to face the challenges of marriage. In some places, it is even said that a girl who doesn't know how to smoke will find it difficult to get married, as men may perceive her as weak, incapable, or disrespectful of tradition. Additionally, Cambodians have another interesting custom of hanging pink curtains in front of their homes when their daughters reach marriageable age, usually around 16 and older. The pink curtain or cloth serves as a signal to the entire village that the daughter is ready for marriage. If a family has multiple daughters, they will hang several curtains at once, possibly stacking them in the main doorway. These curtains will remain until each daughter marries, and whenever someone gets married, one curtain will be taken down. If you find these coming-of-age and marriage customs of the Cambodians truly fascinating, please leave the number 5 inches the comments to see how many people are surprised like you. Number 4. Taboos of the Cambodian people. In Cambodia, if you plan to build a new house for settling down and making a living, be sure to check the calendar first. If it falls during the time known as Pshum Ben, or what the Khmer people humorously refer to as the month of the dead, it's best to postpone your plans. During this period, Cambodians believe that the souls of the deceased are released back to the earthly realm to visit their descendants, so any significant activities, like building a house, buying a car, or opening a store could bring bad luck. Some have jokingly said that building a house during this month is like inviting the entire afterlife to cut the ribbon at the grand opening. Not only do they avoid this month, but the Khmer also pay close attention to the direction in which they sleep. If you enter someone's home and see the bed facing west, you might either be in a morgue or the person is not a true Khmer. For them, the west is where the sun sets, symbolizing death. Only the deceased are allowed to lie with their heads facing that way. If a living person sleeps like that, it is believed they are waiting in line to be called earlier than usual. Pregnant women in Cambodia also have a particular taboo that raises eyebrows. They should not cut their hair. According to folk beliefs, doing so could weaken the mother's spirit and negatively affect the baby in her womb. In fact, many traditional families even advise expectant mothers to limit their makeup use for fear of jealous spirits causing trouble. Of course, science does not support this, but for many Khmer people, better safe than sorry remains the safest choice. Newborns in Cambodia are even more heavily protected. In the first few weeks of life, parents often avoid using the baby's real name, believing that the spirit is still weak and vulnerable to evil forces that might come to take it away. Instead, temporary names like Little One, Kitten, or Bird are used to distract any malevolent spirits. Only during the official naming ceremony is the real name revealed, and if someone in the family passes away, it's best not to call their name directly, especially in the evening or during the month of Phnom. The Khmer believe that calling the name of the deceased could prevent their soul from moving on, or worse, cause them to return, thinking someone is genuinely calling for them. Therefore, you will often hear vague references like that person or the spirit instead of their real name, especially during ancestral worship ceremonies, where everything must be kept as peaceful as possible. What about where you live? Are there any taboos that sound stranger or more interesting than the ones mentioned above? Share your thoughts in the comments below so we can all explore together. Number 5. Married life with Cambodian women. Cambodian women have long been highly regarded in the region, both for their appearance and personality. They typically have a slender figure, the characteristic brownish-yellow skin of Southeast Asia, and harmonious facial features, with small eyes and a moderately high nose. But aside from their looks, have you ever wondered what life is really like alongside a Cambodian woman? First of all, let's talk about dating. Cambodian women generally live in a society that is much more traditional compared to Thailand or Vietnam. For them, romance is still closely tied to seriousness and commitment. Premarital relationships are not very common, especially in rural areas. During dates, most expect men to pay for meals, gifts, or special occasions. Of course, in larger cities like Phnom Penh or Siem Reap, things are more modern. Some couples do split the bill, following global trends, but this is still not the norm. If you are serious and want to move towards marriage, you should also know that the bride price is an important part of Cambodian culture. This amount typically ranges from $1,000 to $5,000. For wealthier families, it can reach tens of thousands of dollars, which is not unusual. Interestingly, the bride price here is negotiable. Both families will sit down and discuss to agree on a final figure. What's fascinating is that this money is not a price for the bride as many might assume. It is often used to organize the wedding and prepare for the couple's shared life. However, marrying a Cambodian girl means not just marrying her but also marrying her entire family. In Khmer culture, family is at the center of all relationships. Therefore, if you become a son-in-law, you may be invited to have meals with the extended family on weekends, participate in festivals, memorial ceremonies, and sometimes even family meetings. This might feel overwhelming for those who prefer privacy, but for Cambodians, it is a way to maintain bonds and respect across generations. After marriage, family roles tend to be quite traditional. Cambodian women usually manage household duties, take care of the children, and handle finances. Many Cambodian men will give most of their salary to their wives to manage, keeping only a small amount for personal expenses, like going out with friends or buying cigarettes. This is not an unwritten rule, but it is a familiar image in marital life here. If you marry a Cambodian girl, would you be willing to hand over all your money for her to manage? If yes, comment with the number 2. If no, comment with the number 0. Number 6. A country with a scarce elderly population. Currently, Cambodia has a population of over 17 million, and notably, more than 50% of the population is under 25 years old. The median age of Cambodians is only about 26, compared to approximately 33 inches Vietnam, 40 inches Thailand, 39 inches the United States, and a staggering 49 inches Japan, which is among the oldest populations in the world. This comparison highlights that Cambodia is truly one of the youngest countries on the planet. At first glance, this seems to be a significant advantage, as the country has a plentiful supply of young labor. However, few people realize that the reason behind this youthful demographic structure is tied to a painful period in Cambodia's modern history. From 1975 to 1979, Cambodia fell under the rule of the Khmer Rouge, an extremist political movement led by Pol Pot. The name Khmer Rouge comes from Khmer, the ethnic majority in Cambodia, combined with rouge, the color symbolizing the extreme communism they pursued. The Khmer Rouge aimed to create a purely agrarian society, where everyone was equal, without money, class distinctions, and where all individuals had to work physically. To realize this extreme ideal, they carried out a brutal purge, arresting, torturing, and executing those deemed enemies of the state. Victims included intellectuals, teachers, doctors, artists, monks, educated individuals, or anyone who had lived in cities, along with ethnic minorities and religious followers. In just 4 years, over 2 million people lost their lives, equivalent to nearly a quarter of Cambodia's population at that time. The majority of those killed were adults and the elderly, particularly those aged 30 to 60. As a result, today, only about 4.5% of Cambodia's population is over 64 years old. In simpler terms, Cambodia's young population is due to the fact that the country has virtually no elderly people left. If you want to learn more about this period, you can watch the film First They Killed My Father, directed by Angelina Jolie. Number 7. Phnom Penh, the City of Heritage. The capital city of Phnom Penh is the largest city in Cambodia, with a population of over 2.2 million people. It serves as the political, cultural, and economic center of the country, and is also an attractive tourist destination, featuring many structures that bear the rich historical and cultural marks of Khmer heritage. Among these, the Royal Palace stands out, built in 1866, and it has remained the residence of Cambodian kings ever since. For those who may not know, Cambodia is currently a constitutional monarchy, headed by King Norodom Sihamoni. Currently, the Royal Palace is open for visitors, but access is limited to certain areas, such as the inner courtyard, the throne hall, and the Silver Pagoda. The royal residence and the private living quarters of the royal family are always closed to the public. If you see the royal blue flag flying atop the palace, it indicates that the king is present. When visiting, it is important to dress modestly, covering your shoulders and knees. Shorts and sleeveless tops are not permitted, as this is a sacred area and holds national significance. Within this complex, the Silver Pagoda is the most prominent attraction. The pagoda is named for its floor, which is laid with over 5,000 pure silver tiles, weighing a total of 5 tons. Unlike typical pagodas, the Silver Pagoda does not house monks. Instead, it serves as a repository for religious treasures and royal symbols. Inside, there are many valuable artifacts, including the Emerald Buddha, carved from precious crystal and a sacred symbol of the royal family, as well as a gold statue of Maitreya weighing over 90 kilograms, adorned with more than 2,000 diamonds, including one that is 25 carats. Additionally, the pagoda displays numerous ancient treasures, gifted from other countries or preserved since the Khmer Empire. To explore Phnom Penh, you can travel by tuk-tuk, taxi, cyclo, or even bicycle to better experience the city's rhythm. One must-visit destination is the National Museum of Cambodia, built in the 1922. This is the largest historical and cultural museum in the country, housing over 14,000 artifacts dating from prehistoric times to the Khmer Empire, helping visitors gain a clearer understanding of Cambodia's history and art through various developmental stages. Phnom Penh is also marked by one of the most tragic chapters in Cambodian history, the Khmer Rouge era. To learn about this period, you can visit Choang Ek, also known as the Killing Fields, where thousands were executed and buried in mass graves. Another site is the S21 prison, now transformed into the Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum. Previously, this location was a high school, but when the Khmer Rouge came to power, it was turned into a notorious detention center where individuals deemed enemies of the regime were imprisoned, tortured, and executed. Today, the building remains largely unchanged, with cramped cells, iron beds, and real images and documents, providing a haunting and authentic glimpse into the atrocities of that time. Number 8. The most powerful empire in Southeast Asia. Few would have guessed that from the 9th to the 15th century, Cambodia was the center of one of the most powerful empires in Southeast Asia. The Khmer Empire at that time spanned over 1 million square kilometers, covering much of present-day Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. Its vast influence and formidable military strength led Chinese historical records to acknowledge that the Khmer was the most powerful force in the south and could pose a potential threat to the mainland. The political and religious center of the Khmer Empire was the Angkor complex, with Angkor Wat being the most prominent. This complex of temples is also the largest religious monument in the world, covering an area of over 1,600 square kilometers. Angkor Wat was built in the early 12th century by Khmer King Suryavarman II as a Hindu temple for the empire, but gradually transformed into a Buddhist temple by the end of the 12th century. Recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1992, the Angkor Wat complex is not only a source of pride for the Cambodian people, but is also regarded as a treasure of the archaeological village of the world, shedding light on the construction technologies of ancient kingdoms. It is estimated that this architectural complex consumed up to 5 million tons of sandstone and was constructed over approximately 35 years, with the labor of around 300,000 workers and 6,000 elephants. Scientists have calculated that it would have taken hundreds of years to build, using only the technologies of that time. Another mystery of the structure that continues to baffle scientists today is how the ancient Khmer managed to bond millions of tons of stone together without the use of mortar. Despite being an ancient architectural masterpiece, Angkor Wat also carries a dark side that is seldom mentioned. To complete this monumental work, hundreds of thousands of people, including women and children, labored under harsh conditions in the jungle, lacking food and medical care. Some archaeologists even suggest that to expedite construction, the king allowed workers to eat only one meal a day. As a result, approximately 50,000 people lost their lives during the 35 years of construction. Furthermore, to fund the building project, the Khmer Empire frequently waged wars and plundered the territories of neighboring countries. Within 8 years, the Khmer launched 3 attacks on the borders of Dai Viet and engaged in conflicts with Myanmar and Thailand to capture prisoners and resources. Although once regarded as a brutal ruler, King Suryavarman II left a tremendous legacy for modern Cambodia. According to statistics from Cambodia's tourism sector, about 50% of international visitors come to the country solely to witness the Angkor Wat complex firsthand. Number 9. A poor country but everyone drives luxury cars. One rather strange thing about Cambodia is that despite the average income being just over $2,000 a year, cars are a very common mode of transportation here. And no, these aren't old rusty vehicles on the verge of being scrapped. They are brands typically associated with the middle and upper classes in the U.S. and Europe, such as Mercedes, Lexus, or Land Cruiser. In fact, some people even use a Lexus to transport grass for their cattle. Yes, you heard that right. Out of every 10 households, 3 or 4 own a car. The reason Cambodians can easily own cars is due to the country's very lenient vehicle tax policy. The import tax here is significantly lower than the global average, and the government allows the import of used cars with almost no restrictions on age or quantity. As a result, vehicles that once cost tens of thousands of dollars in the U.S., Japan, or Europe can be brought to Cambodia after years of use, refurbished, and sold for just a few $1,000s. When car prices become that affordable, owning a car is no longer a privilege reserved for the wealthy, but is entirely within reach for the middle class, and even for ordinary laborers. However, the king of the streets in Cambodia remains the motorcycle. The country has 6 to 7 million motorcycles on the road daily, ranking among the highest in Southeast Asia in terms of motorcycle density relative to its population. You will see a variety of scenes, from old motorcycles carrying families of 5 to shiny scooters zipping through traffic. Notably, wearing helmets is not always mandatory for passengers, and many locals still ride without helmets in the streets. In addition to motorcycles, tuk-tuks are an indispensable part of transportation in Cambodia. These compact 3-wheeled vehicles are not only a popular means of transport but also a specialty for tourists. Tuk-tuk fares are usually not fixed, so haggling is almost a necessary skill, and many drivers also double as tour guides, ready to share stories about history, culture, or give directions throughout your journey. In rural areas, the traffic scene is even more interesting. Trucks packed with people like buses, ox carts leisurely crossing highways, or motorcycles pulling long trailers are common sights. It can be said that anything with wheels in Cambodia can become a means of transportation. Traffic here is also quite chaotic, typical of Southeast Asian countries. People rarely stick to their lanes, overtake wherever possible, and tuk-tuks can stop in the middle of the road to pick up passengers at any time. However, surprisingly, all of this occurs in a very calm atmosphere. There are no loud honks, no arguments, and no tempers flaring. Cambodians have a habit of yielding and staying calm on the road, creating a characteristic traffic picture. Chaotic, yet very peaceful. Number 10. The scam paradise of Southeast Asia? In recent years, Cambodia has often been referred to by some international netizens with the controversial nickname Scambodia, a portmanteau of scam and Cambodia, highlighting the increasingly prevalent cross-border fraud in the country. Although this is not an official name, the nickname somewhat reflects the reality documented in numerous reports by the United Nations and international organizations, as Cambodia is assessed to be one of the hotspots for online fraud and forced labor in Southeast Asia. According to Human Rights Watch, since 2021, tens of thousands of people from various countries such as Vietnam, China, the Philippines, and Malaysia have been deceived into coming to Cambodia to work in scam centers. They are often lured by enticing job offers, but upon arrival, their passports are confiscated, and they are detained and forced to participate in online fraud activities. Many face threats, beatings, or are sold to other organizations if they fail to meet targets. Interpol estimates that hundreds of millions of USD are embezzled each year from scams originating from these centers. Most scam operations in Cambodia disguise themselves as technology companies or customer service centers. On the surface, they operate like legitimate businesses, but inside, they are fraud factories with hundreds of people coerced into working daily. The process typically begins with building trust. Employees impersonate acquaintances, investment experts, or bank staff to befriend victims, offer financial advice, or present wealth-building opportunities. Some groups establish online romantic relationships that last for weeks before tricking victims into transferring money. Some operations even set up fake investment platforms, displaying fictitious profits to entice users to deposit more money before cutting off contact and stealing everything. Many organizations have expanded their networks into Laos, Myanmar, or the Philippines to evade crackdowns. This clear division of roles, diverse tactics, and the ability to adapt continuously make investigation and dismantling efforts particularly challenging. In response to pressure from international public opinion, the Cambodian government has taken strong measures to address the issue. In 2023, law enforcement agencies coordinated with several countries to dismantle over 100 suspected scam operations, rescuing thousands of individuals and exposing numerous organized crime groups. The government has also enacted stricter visa regulations, closely monitored foreign business activities, and enhanced cooperation with international organizations to improve investigative capabilities. Number 11. Tonlé Sap, the largest freshwater lake in the region. Cambodia is also home to Tonlé Sap, the largest freshwater lake in Southeast Asia, often referred to as the heart of Cambodia. This lake is famous for a rare natural phenomenon known as seasonal reverse flow. Normally, water from the lake flows out into the Tonlé Sap River, which then merges into the Mekong River system, the largest river flowing through Cambodia and several other Southeast Asian countries. However, during the rainy season, when the water level of the Mekong River rises, a massive amount of water from downstream is pushed back, causing the flow of the Tonlé Sap River to completely reverse. At this time, instead of flowing out, the river water flows back into the lake, significantly expanding its area and inundating the surrounding floodplain and wetlands. When the dry season arrives and the water level of the Mekong River decreases, the flow returns to its original direction, and the water from the lake flows back into the river, restoring the land for agricultural use. Each time the river changes direction marks the beginning of the most prolific fish breeding season of the year in Tonlé Sap. The rising waters bring sediment, fish eggs, and juvenile fish from the Mekong River into the lake, creating an ideal environment for hundreds of species to thrive. As a result, Tonlé Sap has become the largest source of freshwater fish in Southeast Asia, providing around 300,000 to 400,000 tons of fish each year, accounting for up to 60% of Cambodia's total inland fish production. In addition to its remarkable phenomenon, the lake is home to over 1 million people. Most of them live in stilt houses built along the water's edge, and when the rainy season arrives, the rising waters make the entire village appear to float gently on the lake's surface. From a distance, it evokes a feeling similar to Venice, but in a much more rustic and intimate way. Interestingly, the majority of the residents in the floating villages around Tonlé Sap are not Cambodian, but Vietnamese immigrants who came here in the 1952 during the war. At that time, the Cambodian government did not allow them to settle on land, but permitted them to live on the water. Gradually, these Vietnamese communities grew, forming over 170 floating villages scattered around the lake, creating a unique cultural blend between the two nations. Number 12. Monopoly politics. Cambodia's politics is one of the most controversial models in Southeast Asia. In theory, it is a multi-party democratic nation with a constitution, a parliament, and regular elections. However, in practice, the opposition is nearly absent from the political landscape, making this democratic model difficult to understand for the international community. Cambodia operates under a constitutional monarchy, with the king serving as a symbolic head of state. Currently, this position is held by King Norodom Sihamoni, but real executive power lies in the hands of others. For over 38 years, Prime Minister Hun Sen, the leader of the Cambodian People's Party (CPP), has controlled the entire political system, from the government to the parliament and the executive branch. Formally, Cambodia still holds elections and allows multiple parties to participate. However, the CPP has implemented various measures to eliminate or weaken political opponents. A notable example occurred in 2017 when the Cambodia National Rescue Party, the largest opposition force at the time, was dissolved by the Supreme Court on charges of attempting to overthrow the government. Since then, every election has lacked genuine competition, and the parliament has nearly become a representative body for a single party. The peak of power concentration occurred in 2023, when Prime Minister Hun Sen announced the transfer of his position to his son, Hun Manet. Although the transfer took place within a legal framework, the fact that his successor is his own son has raised many questions about the true nature of democracy in Cambodia. Many opinions suggest that this is a form of hereditary succession disguised as a republic. Number 13. A nation full of tricks. The national sport of Cambodia is actually a martial art called Bokator. This martial art was historically used to train soldiers during the Angkor Empire, with techniques mimicking the movements of tigers, snakes, birds, and crocodiles. Over the years, Bokator faced the risk of fading into obscurity, but was revived and, in 2022, was officially recognized by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage. However, just a year after receiving this honor, Bokator unexpectedly became embroiled in an unprecedented controversy in Southeast Asian sports. Cambodia is the host country for the 32nd SEA Games, the largest sporting event in the region. For this edition of the Games, the host nation decided to completely remove Muay Thai, a martial art that has had a stable presence at the SEA Games, and replace it with Bokator. This move sparked fierce reactions from countries in the region, particularly Thailand, which has a significant advantage in Muay Thai. Alongside Bokator, Cambodia faced criticism for using a large number of naturalized athletes in various events. At the same time, they eliminated or reduced the scale of many traditional sports where other countries excel, such as pencak silat, wushu, fencing, and some athletics events. This change led many to believe that Cambodia was deliberately paving the way for its athletes to win medals in order to enhance the country's status. Throughout its history of participating in the SEA Games, Cambodia's achievements have often been modest. On average, they have only won about 10 gold medals per edition. In contrast, Thailand, the most successful country in the region, averages around 78 gold medals per edition. Vietnam, despite having participated in only 18 editions, also averages about 70 gold medals each time. Given the pressure between these two sporting powerhouses, it is understandable that Cambodia sought to seize the opportunity of hosting to make its mark. The 32nd SEA Games allowed them to achieve something unprecedented, winning a record number of gold medals in the history of their sports, totaling 81. Nevertheless, it must be said that Cambodia put in tremendous effort for the 32nd SEA Games. They were the first country in the history of the SEA Games to cover all expenses for accommodation and travel for all participating sports delegations. Number 14. Mysterious places in Cambodia. Koh Ker is one of the most debated sites in Cambodia when it comes to phenomena that remain unexplained. Deep in the northern jungle, Koh Ker was briefly the capital of the Khmer Empire in the 10th century. At the center of this area is the Prasat Tom Temple, built in the form of a pyramid with a height of over 30 meters. The issue lies in the orientation of the entire complex. Instead of following the east-west or north-south axes like most other Khmer structures, Prasat Tom is misaligned by about 15 degrees. When surveyed with a compass, many research teams have noted that the needle in this area often fluctuates erratically. However, geological studies have not found any large metal deposits or strong magnetic structures to explain this phenomenon. The construction of such a major power center with such an unusual orientation remains an unanswered question. Another issue at Koh Ker relates to the giant stone statues that were once placed here. Archaeological evidence shows that this area once housed hundreds of deities and sacred figures, many of which weighed several tons. Today, most of the statues have disappeared, yet there are no clear signs of transportation. There are no drag paths, no sliding grooves, and no suitable loading docks that match the dense jungle and hilly terrain. Some stone bases still bear fixed pins, indicating that the statues were placed there for a long time before vanishing. The question of how these massive stone blocks were moved out of a remote area like Koh Ker, given the technical conditions of that time, remains unanswered. The second site is Phnom Kulen, a mountain range located northeast of Siem Reap, considered the birthplace of the Khmer Empire. Here, there exists an inexplicable phenomenon related to the Cabospian River. Beneath the river, thousands of carvings of lingas and symbols of the god Vishnu have been discovered, directly carved into the riverbed. These carvings stretch for hundreds of meters along the flow. The problem is that most of the patterns can only be clearly seen during the dry season, while for most of the year, they are completely submerged. This raises questions about the original purpose of these carvings, as they were not designed for easy observation. The distribution of the symbols at Cabospian also does not follow a familiar order. Some sections are densely packed with lingas, while others feature horizontal images of Vishnu in the flow, a rare layout in Khmer art. Notably, many carvings are located in very hard-to-reach positions, even when the water level is low. This suggests that ancient people must have worked directly under the river, in slippery conditions and strong currents, yet left no clear traces of water diversion systems or construction tools. To this day, both Kokher and Phnom Kulen contain specific details that remain fully unexplained, keeping these two sites on the list of Cambodia's great mysteries. Number 15. The country with the fastest-growing economy in the region. Cambodia is one of the fastest-growing economies in the world over the past several years. From 1995 to 2019, the country's economy recorded an average growth rate of 8% to 12% per year, which is 3 times the global average. One of the key sectors driving Cambodia's remarkable development is the textile industry. If you've ever purchased a shirt from H&M, Uniqlo, or even Nike, there's a good chance that product was made in Phnom Penh, Kampong Speo, or some industrial zone in Cambodia. According to the World Bank, the garment sector accounts for 60–70% of Cambodia's total merchandise export value for many years. The country has over 700 garment factories, employing more than 800,000 workers, which represents about 10% of the national workforce. Thanks to a low minimum wage of around $204 per month and tariff benefits from the EU and the U.S. market, Cambodia has skillfully integrated into the global supply chain, particularly in the fast fashion segment. In parallel, Cambodia is also known as the casino paradise of Southeast Asia. The country has legalized gambling and developed nearly 200 legal casinos, primarily in Sihanoukville and border areas, attracting visitors from Thailand, China, and Vietnam, countries where gambling is prohibited. In 2019, Cambodia's casino revenue reached nearly $2 billion, creating a vibrant ecosystem of tourism, real estate, and services around the casinos. Notably, Sihanoukville has transformed into the Las Vegas of Southeast Asia in less than a decade, generating foreign currency and changing the local economic landscape. In addition to these two main economic sectors, Cambodia also excels in agriculture with export products such as rice, cashews, and pepper, along with a tourism industry that attracts over 6 million international visitors each year. And so, we have just explored 15 interesting facts about Cambodia together. I hope the information provided has given you a fresh and clearer perspective on this vibrant country. If you found the video valuable, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to continue joining us on our upcoming exploration journeys. The information is for reference only, so please do your own research before making any decisions.